Samir was a young man looking for a quiet job. He found one at the old Grand Majestic Hotel. The hotel was a giant, spooky building at the edge of town. It had these long, dark hallways and carpets that were worn thin from years of footsteps. The paint on the walls was peeling and the air always smelled like dust and old perfume. Samir's job was simple. He was the night guard. He had to walk the halls from midnight until the sun came up. He had to make sure everything was safe and sound. It sounded easy enough, but he soon learned this was no ordinary hotel. This place had secrets. On his first night, the hotel manager, a grim-faced man named Mr. Blackwood, gave him a tour. He handed Samir a heavy ring of keys. There were keys for every door in the hotel, from the grand ballroom to the smallest supply closet. But Mr. Blackwood pointed to one specific key, a tarnished brass key with the number 313 stamped on it. He warned Samir with a very serious look on his face. He told him that he could go anywhere he wanted, check any room he pleased, but he was never, ever to use this key. He was never to open the door to room 313. Mr. Blackwood's warning was strange and unsettling. He didn't explain why the room was off limits. He just said, "Some doors are best left unopened, son, for your own good." The mystery of room 313 began to eat at Samir. Every night, as he made his rounds, he would pause in front of that door. It looked just like any other door on the third floor. It was painted a faded white with the numbers 313 nailed crookedly to the wood, but knowing it was forbidden made it feel different. It felt cold. He would place his hand on the doorknob, feeling a strange chill run up his arm. Samir tried to ignore the warning. He tried to focus on his duties, on the creaks and groans of the old building. He told himself it was probably just a storage room filled with broken furniture and dusty old boxes. Maybe the lock was just broken, but the way Mr. Blackwood had looked at him, with fear in his eyes, suggested something more. The warning was not a simple instruction, it was a desperate plea. The forbidden room became the center of his thoughts, a dark puzzle waiting in the silence of the long, lonely nights. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for him behind that door. Weeks passed, and the job became a routine. Walk the halls, check the doors, listen to the old hotel breathe. But one night, a terrible storm rolled into town. Thunder rattled the windows of the Grand Majestic Hotel, sounding like a giant stomping on the roof. Lightning flashed outside, lighting up the long, dark corridors for a split second, creating these dancing, scary shadows on the walls. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, making the whole building moan. It was the kind of night where every sound made you jump, where you felt like you were not alone, even when you were. Samir felt a deep sense of unease settle over him. As he was walking down the third-floor hallway, something stopped him dead in his tracks. It was a sound, faint at first, but it grew louder as he got closer to room 313. It was the sound of a woman crying. Not just crying, but sobbing as if her heart was breaking into a million pieces. The sound seemed to come directly from behind the forbidden door. Samir pressed his ear against the cold wood. The crying was clear now, filled with so much pain and sadness. He called out, "Hello, is anyone in there? Are you okay?" But the only answer he received was another heartbreaking sob. Samir remembered Mr. Blackwood's warning. He remembered the fear in the manager's eyes. His mind screamed at him to walk away, to run down the stairs and never look back. He should pretend he didn't hear anything. It was probably just the wind playing tricks on him, or the old pipes making strange noises. It was an old building after all, but the crying sounded so real, so human. How could he just ignore someone who sounded like they were in so much trouble? What if someone was hurt? What if they needed his help? He was the night guard. It was his job to protect people. His conscience battled with his fear. The storm raged on outside, and the woman's cries echoed in the hallway, pulling at his heart. He felt a strong sense of duty to help. What kind of person would he be if he just walked away? He couldn't live with himself. Taking a deep, shaky breath, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the heavy ring of keys. His fingers trembled as he found the old, tarnished brass key, the one with the number 313. He made a decision. He had to know what was inside. He had to help the crying woman. He pushed the key into the lock. The old lock turned with a loud, grinding click that echoed through the silent hallway. The sound seemed to make the whole hotel hold its breath. Samir pushed the door open, and it creaked loudly on its rusty hinges. The crying sound stopped instantly. A wave of cold, musty air rushed out to greet him, smelling of dried flowers and something else, something like decay. He stepped inside, his flashlight beam cutting through the thick darkness. What he saw made him gasp. The room was not empty or used for storage. It was a perfect bedroom, but it looked like it was from a different time. Everything was preserved, as if frozen in the past. A large four-poster bed with a dusty canopy stood against one wall. A beautiful wooden vanity with a set of silver brushes sat in the corner. An old-fashioned dress was laid out carefully on a chair, as if someone was just about to put it on. There was a thick layer of dust covering every single surface, like a gray blanket. The air was heavy and still. It was like stepping into a photograph from 100 years ago. There was no one in the room. The woman who had been crying was nowhere to be seen. Samir walked deeper into the room, his footsteps muffled by the thick, patterned carpet. He ran his finger over the dusty vanity, leaving a clean streak. It was so strange, so eerie. Why would a hotel keep a room like this, perfectly preserved but completely abandoned? He felt a shiver run down his spine. He was not supposed to be here. He felt like an intruder, a trespasser in a place where time itself had stopped. He swept his flashlight across the room one last time, making sure he hadn't missed anything, and that's when his light landed on it. On the wall opposite the bed, there was a large, ornate mirror with a heavy, dark wood frame. Its surface was cloudy with age, but he could still see his own reflection. He saw himself standing there in his guard uniform holding his flashlight. But as he stared, he noticed something was wrong. Terribly wrong. In the mirror, standing right behind his reflection, was the ghostly figure of a woman. She had long, dark hair and was wearing a white, old-fashioned gown. Her face was pale, and her eyes were filled with an endless sadness. But the most terrifying part was that when he spun around, the room behind him was completely empty. Samir was never seen again. When the sun came up, the day manager arrived to find the door to room 313 wide open. The key was still in the lock. Samir's flashlight was on the floor inside, its beam growing weak. But of Samir himself, there was no trace. The police were called, and they searched every inch of the Grand Majestic Hotel. They searched the dusty attics and the dark, damp basement. They questioned Mr. Blackwood and all the staff, but it was as if Samir had simply vanished into thin air. He was gone, leaving behind only an open door and a haunting mystery. Life at the hotel carried on. Mr. Blackwood locked the door to room 313 once more. He put up a job posting for a new night guard. A week later, a new young man was hired. His name was Leo. On his first night, Mr. Blackwood gave him the same tour he had given Samir. He handed him the same heavy ring of keys and showed him the hallways he had to walk. He explained the duties, the quiet hours, and the responsibility of keeping the old hotel safe through the long, dark nights. Leo listened carefully, eager to start his new, simple job. Then, just as he had done before, Mr. Blackwood paused. He pointed to the tarnished brass key with the number 313 stamped on it. He looked Leo straight in the eyes, and his voice was low and serious. "You can go anywhere you need to," he said, his words heavy with unspoken history. "But you must never ever open the door to room 313, for your own good, son. Some doors are best left unopened." Leo nodded, a little confused by the strange warning, but he promised he would obey. He took the keys, not understanding the true danger that they held. And so, the cycle began again. The secret of room 313 remained hidden behind its locked door. The old hotel kept its ghostly guest, waiting in the room that time forgot. On stormy nights when the wind howls and the thunder shakes the building, a faint sound can sometimes be heard on the third floor. It is the sound of a woman crying, a sad, lonely plea echoing from behind the forbidden door. And the mirror inside the room waits patiently, holding its dark reflection, ready for the next curious soul who dares to turn the key and step inside.